Hi everybody, and thank you for purchasing the stained glass pre-cut glass flower gnome. We have these and various other kits available, but let's work on this one and start foiling. So you should be at this point right here where you've got all your glass pieces laid out on top of your pattern. They're all numbered, so you should be able to match number 1 to the number on your pattern. And then we'll get started with our foil. This is a copper foil and it has a paper backing, so just peel off the paper backing. And starting with any piece of glass, we're going to start by putting the glass on the foil right in the middle of the foil. So we want to, this is the important part, is that you make sure that you get your glass, the edge of your glass, right in the middle of your foil. Then you're going to begin by wrapping the foil all the way around this piece of glass, making sure that you're staying right in the middle of your foil tape. The silver side is sticky, so it should stick to your piece of glass very nicely. If for some reason it doesn't, just tear it off, start again, make sure your glass is nice and clean and dry. Once you've come all the way back around where you started, overlap just a little bit, and then you can just tear, or using a piece of scissors, cut the foil, and you should have one solid piece of foil completely around your piece of glass. Once you've gotten there, you want to just gently press the foil down on top of the glass because it is wider than your piece of glass, and continue this going all the way around. And what you're looking for when you're doing this is you want to ensure that however much foil you have folded over on this side of the glass is the same and equal amount as it is on the other side. Now, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you do need to have a close amount of the same width of foil on both sides of the glass. Once you've got it all nicely pressed down, then you're going to grab your fid. This is your fid. This is also included in your kit. And starting on these outside edges here, you're just going to gently burnish, just press to make sure that your foil is adhered to your piece of glass very nicely, and that you're basically ironing out all the wrinkles, or as many as you can. And once you've gone all the way around, then lay it flat on your surface. And again, notice how the wrinkles are kind of going away, most of them. And you're going to burnish this side again, smoothing out the wrinkles. And you're going to flip your glass piece over and do the exact same thing to the other side. So now you've done all 3 sides. They're burnished. The glass is stuck very nicely, or I'm sorry, the foil is stuck very nicely to the glass. If by chance you happen to end up with this little guy right here, this is what I call my little tails. It's where you have stopped and started the foil. So keep in mind that whatever your foil looks like on your glass, that's what your solder is going to look like too, because when we get to the soldering stage, you will solder onto your foil and the solder will only stick to foil. So if your foil looks like this is what your solder is going to look like. So we don't want this little, what I call tail, sticking out. So grab an X-Acto knife or a hobby knife, and all you're going to do is just kind of trim this back a little bit so that it becomes nice and even and you have a nice smooth line like that. And if you need to do it on the other side, then go ahead and do it on the other side also. And that is your first foiled piece of glass. Now you're going to continue this process with every other piece of glass that's on your pattern, to include your pebble. Okay, so let's do another one. Now here's a quick tip, is anytime I start my foil, I don't ever start the foil on any of these outside edges, anywhere on the outer edge of this panel. I always start my foil inside where glass touches glass, here, 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 in between the fingers, here, etc. because we don't want the ends of our foil getting caught out here on anything after we're done. Okay, so we're going to start the next piece. Again, doesn't matter where you start, all the pieces will need to be foiled. So we'll do one more. And again, staying smack dab in the center of the foil. Make sure your glass is right in the middle as we go all the way around. And again, when we have come back to the beginning, then we are just going to, again, using a pair of scissors, or I just use my fingers because the foil is thin, just tear it off. Again, fold the foil over onto the glass all the way around. And one more time, we will take our fid and we will burnish, making all the foil as smooth as possible and making sure it's stuck to the glass. Again, if for some reason your foil is not sticking and it keeps wanting to come up off the glass, tear the entire foil off. We don't want to piece it onto the glass. We always want to use one solid piece of foil completely all the way around. And then just clean up your glass with water and a cloth or something, just to make sure it's free of any fingerprints, debris, etc., so that we have a nice adhesion of foil to our glass piece. So again, I'm burnishing both sides all the way around. And when I'm done, I just do a real quick little inspection to make sure I like the way my foil looks all the way around. Here I happen to have just a little bit of what I call, again, my little tail. If you can see that right there, it's just very, very small, but I'll just go ahead and take a second here, knock that off, put that back, and we'll move on to the next piece. And we'll again continue this till all your pieces have been foiled. All right, let's get ready to solder. So you should have all your pieces foiled and on your pattern and pinned in place. But most importantly, make sure they're pinned tightly because we don't want anything moving while we begin to solder. All right, so grab your flux out of your kit. You will also need your flux brush. I'm going to grab my nasty old brush. In addition, you will need a 100-watt soldering iron, which is not included. I will be using a Heiko 601. All right, so now let's grab our flux. What we're using here today is a gel flux. You can use gel flux, you can use liquid flux. It's just a matter of preference. We will be applying it to all the areas of copper foil that we've wrapped around our glass. And we just want to apply it as though we were applying paint. Not too heavy, not too thin. The next thing you're going to need out of your kit is going to be your solder. We're using a Canfield 50/50 solder today. The two types most commonly used for stained glass are either a 50/50 like we have here or a 60/40. And the difference between the two is basically just the ratio of tin to lead. The other difference is the 50/50 will actually solidify faster when you're soldering, versus the 60/40 will stay liquid a little longer before it solidifies. All right, so let's begin by tack soldering. And the way we do this is we take our iron, we swipe it across our solder to get it on our soldering iron, and then we were just going to place it on our copper foil, just in random areas where the glass pieces come together, so that we can make sure that all the glass pieces are temporarily stuck together so that we can get our push pins out of the way.
Another way you can solder is to do what's called running a bead. That is where you take your solder, place it against the tip of your iron, and then at the same time move your iron across your copper foil joint. This takes a little bit of hand-eye coordination and some practice before you can get your bead to come out very nice. So we're just going to go ahead and continue to tack this piece. No matter which method you use, you want to get enough solder on your panel to make it look like a little speed bump. And the trick to doing this and getting them all nice and smooth is what I call my 2-second rule. Go back over your solder lines with your iron by depressing all the way down until you hit the glass, and then just count to 2. And just go up and down, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 across your solder lines, because they will flow quite nicely and create the solder bead that you're looking for. So it just takes a little time and practice. You'll get the hang of it. All right, now that you've got all of your tack soldering done, hopefully all your pieces are together so that they won't move away from each other. We can now finally remove all of our push pins and get them out of our way so we don't have to try to maneuver our soldering iron in between those push pins. If you happen to have missed one and the piece comes away like it did on me here, no worries, just push it back in, add another tack solder, and you're off and running again so that we can complete the rest of the soldering process. All right, the next step is called tinning. You're going to take your flux brush, you're going to apply flux to the perimeter of the copper foil around the top side of your panel here, and then you're going to use very little solder on the tip of your iron, and you're going to go across the top of your copper foil as shown here, all the way around the perimeter, but of the top of this panel, top side only. And then when you have completed this process, good news is you've now completed side 1. Flip your panel over and repeat the entire soldering process for the back side of your panel. Same exact thing to include the tinning process.
And this last step is to add rings or jump rings as included right here in your kit to your panel if you wish to hang your piece. The way I like to attach my jump rings is at a joint, like right here, but I like to do it on the back side of the panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, and again I'm going to solder one on each side of this joint right here. We like to solder on the joints. We don't want to solder where there isn't a joint, like up here or down here by the foil, because foil is not going to be strong enough to hold your panel up. So we're going to find a joint. I like to go about halfway into the joint with the ring, like so. Use a pair of pliers to hold the ring because the ring does get hot. And again, we're going to apply flux. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of solder, just like that. And the same process of going on top of the ring, counting 1, 2. And there is the ring. Now you hold on to it until the solder solidifies so that the ring doesn't fall off. We're going to continue the process, same exact thing on the other side of the joint. Going to hold it about halfway, 50% of the ring will be in the joint. Again, we always flux. Grab a little bit of solder here, and then I'm going to go down on top of the ring, count 1, 2. All right, looks like we missed a little bit. It slid down the side, that's okay. I'm not letting go. We're going to get a little bit more solder, try that one more time. 1, 2. There you go, again, hanging on to it till the solder solidifies. And now we are good to go. If you do have any globs or anything, see if I can get this on camera, running down the side where it may have rolled, the solder may have rolled by, again, just give it a quick swipe as though you were tinning with your soldering iron, and you are good to go. Again, that's it. You've now completed your very first stained glass panel. Thanks again. I appreciate it. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to give us an email. I'll be more than happy to help. Continue on to the cleaning process. Thanks again, and have a groovy day.
When you've completed soldering both sides of your panel, congratulations, you're done.